Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Welcome to Patient Prep Room, a podcast that explores important and often misunderstood aspects of living with autoimmune arthritis and related conditions in Australia. I'm your host, Naomi Creek, National Coordinator at GHLF Australia. And in this episode, I have two lovely guests to have a chat with. Simone Bye is from New South Wales and lives with psoriatic arthritis. She was diagnosed in 2018 and is a mum of two young children. Simone says the hardest part of her journey has been trialling and medically failing so many treatments, which has made it very difficult to be the parent she wants to be for her kids. Despite these challenges, she's doing her best to manage her condition and get on with life. We are also joined by Sarah Comensoli from BJC Health in Sydney. Sarah has a number of roles there as Director, Head of Marketing and Manager of the Allied Health Team. She has been practising as an Accredited Exercise Physiologist since 2008 and has worked in a number of clinical and gym settings since then. Sarah has been instrumental in building the exercise physiology service at BJC Health to be one which is unmatched in delivering care to those with rheumatic disease. Thank you both for joining this episode of Patient Prep Room.
Welcome. Thanks for having us, Naomi.
I'm pleased to be here.
Fantastic. Simone, I'll start with you. You had an incredibly stressful time leading up to your diagnosis and have had a challenging time being able to manage your psoriatic arthritis with medication. Can you tell us more about that?
Of course. Leading up to my diagnosis, I'd had just a series of just awful things. My father died, I had a second trimester miscarriage, and my cousin was dying of terminal cancer. So the general consensus was that these three things caused massive amounts of stress, and that triggered off perhaps a genetic condition, psoriatic arthritis, which is linked to a few other diseases that run rampant in our family, notably type 1 diabetes. So kind of all made sense. My father had psoriasis, although he didn't have psoriatic arthritis. And I just noticed, I had a sore knee, and then I had sore collarbones, and then I had sore wrists, and then I had a sore elbow. So I saw my GP, and I was incredibly lucky because his wife has a kind of autoimmune arthritis as well. So he recognized the symptoms very early and connected me to a rheumatologist. So I was very lucky. I got diagnosed within 6 months of symptoms appearing.
Wow, Simone, that must have been such a sad time for you to deal with all of those things and really stressful too. How did you cope with that diagnosis?
I think I was sort of in disbelief. First was, what? Like, what is psoriatic arthritis? I'd never heard of it. I'd heard of rheumatoid arthritis, but I'd never heard of psoriatic arthritis. The rheumatologist, that particular one, wasn't terribly helpful. I've since changed. He sort of said to me, well, at least it's not rheumatoid arthritis. And I was sent home thinking, oh, well, this is nothing. And then got home and started to look it up on the internet, and my symptoms got worse, and realized that I was in for the long haul with something that was a progressive disease, if we couldn't get on top of it. So that's sort of where I was then.
And did you start some medications straight away?
I actually couldn't, because we were doing IVF. We'd just lost a baby, and we were doing IVF to try and have our next son. So that meant that there were a lot of medications that I couldn't take. I did try sulfasalazine, which is, I think, the only one that's safe for trying to conceive. But like so many drugs, as you'll find out, I had side effects to that one, and we had to discontinue. So basically, I was on steroids for my IVF anyway. So steroids were really the only line of defense at that point in this journey.
And what about after you had your child?
Well, that took a few years. Finally, that was 2020. So, there was quite a gap between then and when we could do something. And then, of course, you can't use methotrexate or anything like that when you're breastfeeding. So I had to delay treatment until I'd finished breastfeeding. I did have an exception to try a biologic, but I just wasn't keen on trialing something while I was pregnant, because over my life, I've had so many side effects to medication that I just wasn't prepared after we'd lost the last baby to do anything that might jeopardize that. So basically, late 2020, after my son was weaned, then I started on methotrexate, which I found to be actually a really good drug for me. And I'm still on it. To this day, I'm on a high dose, the highest dose that you can get as an injectable once a week.
I see, yeah. So not having that choice of medications has been really extra hard for you. What are some of the other ways you manage your condition day to day?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is pacing, like just to take time. I've been very lucky to be accepted into the pain clinic at RPAH Hospital in Sydney, and I'm seeing an occupational therapist there. I've just started, and we're actually working on fine tuning the pacing a little bit more even. Instead of sort of waiting till I get tired, starting to maybe use a timer, stopping before I get tired. But a lot of it, to be honest, with young children, there's not a lot you can do. You've just got to get on with life. I have a very supportive husband who's taken over a lot of the household tasks that I can't do anymore. But a lot of it is just get up, keep on. I mean, kids are great because, they don't care. I'm like, oh, I'm in so much pain. Mom, can you get me my toothbrush, So I think that's actually good because it keeps you moving.
Yep, exactly. Keeping that activity level up. Sarah, you work with a variety of allied health practitioners at BJC Health who help patients like Simone with conditions like psoriatic arthritis. What are some of the ways these therapies help people?
I guess firstly, I wanted to thank Simone for sharing all that she did. And I guess it just really highlights it's different for everyone in terms of that journey to getting diagnosed initially, then those months afterwards. And I think, in Simone's case, I can just imagine that if someone said, well, Simone, now you got to exercise and now you've got to do this and do that, that would have been incredibly challenging and still is, So I guess at BJC, I'm lucky to be supported by a team where we just try and help meet people where they're at because we know things like managing what you're eating, trying to have a good nutritious diet can be helpful. Things like pacing and having a good sort of physical activity regime can also be helpful. We know those strategies can make a real difference to patients' lives, but it's just always about how much anyone can take in at one point. I've certainly learned to appreciate getting the medications right. That can take months or years, and that's an ongoing thing that we need to be very mindful of. But I think, as allied health professionals, our job is really to support our patients and really comes down to what sort of lifestyle they want to live, and we're there to support them be able to do that as best we possibly can.
Yeah. For someone like Simone who has got kids and is maybe not on all the medications that would be helping her to the max and exercising, how do you motivate someone to, I guess, keep moving or even start a program? Must be hard.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think something I had to learn just through experience was that there's always a way though. And I think, my university training, to be honest, didn't really give me too many tools. I think I came out thinking that everyone would need quite a structured program and they need to do this and they needed to do that. And the reality was within a few months of being at BJC, I just realized that it just wasn't working. It was terrible. I felt so incapable that I wasn't really making a difference like I wanted to. So I think, again, it comes down to sort of figuring out what people want to get out of any particular program that they might do. That's really important because if we don't have that set with some clarity at the beginning, then motivation and other terms like that become hard. So I think having some good aims or at least a clear direction can be very helpful. And it's just reminding people that it doesn't have to look a particular way. I think with exercise, even just the term exercise, if, all three of us, just hearing that word, you might think, oh, what do I picture when I think exercise? Do you picture a gym? Do you picture doing something gentle in bed? Everyone's got quite a different view of what that might look like. But I've learned that it can look like anything. It's just about trying to find something that someone can do consistently. And that's what's kept, I guess, the clinical part of my role quite fun. I find I get to be quite creative because someone's program that works really well for them might be completely rubbish for somebody else, and they might have the same conditions. So I think you've really got to work with someone where they're at and just remind them that whatever they're willing to give, we can still use in a useful way. So you've got to get creative, but I often find myself there's always a way. If you're willing to give just a little bit of time and we chip away at helping you be consistent, then that's a way we can try and make it start.
Yeah, fantastic. Simone, would you like to say anything about what Sarah's just said?
I think that one of the problems for me with exercise is that periodically I have flares. And when I have a flare, I'm just in so much pain that movement is made extra special. So I guess the thing that I'm learning is that it doesn't always have to be linear. It could be 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or doing what you can at any given time, because it's very demotivating when something's too structured and you just can't do it. Some of the exercises I've been given from the physio at the pain clinic, some days I can do them, other days I just literally cannot do them. I can't raise my arms above my head. So that's certainly been a challenge. For me, I've found that just trying to very conscious about moving in everyday life, like not sitting too much, or if I've sat, to get up to move around. And I have an Airbnb, means that I have to do a lot more physical work than I've done in years. And that in some ways has been very good for me because it keeps me moving. In a sense, I'm exercising, but my brain isn't telling me, oh, God, I'm exercising right now, if you know what I mean. But I think as time's gone on, I have recognized how important it is for me to keep moving. In the beginning, when I just had so much pain and I couldn't see my way through, I didn't realize how important moving was, because there is the temptation to just lie there or sit there and be in your pain. So it's just such an ever evolving process of learning how to cope with this disease.
Sounds like you're doing great though, Simone, and you touched on a couple of really important points, I think. And for any, healthcare professionals that might be listening, it's really good to share that, because I think, again, how we often get trained and taught is in a very linear way. And exercise is great in the fact that, yes, if you do it consistently, we hope that the system adapts and things, get stronger or get fitter. But that can all be sort of much, much, much more challenging when you've got an autoimmune condition or something that makes training in a consistent way difficult. So I think it's what you said, spot on. It's good to have different options for different days, or at least often say to clients, it's great to just share that with any, people that you're working with, that the program some days is great, but other days that's not going to be what I'm able to do, just so they've got that appreciation and understanding. But sounds like you're doing great, and keeping yourself moving throughout the day, that in itself is a wonderful thing, let alone a structured kind of exercise program. Being incidentally active, we know, is still very powerful and very positive. So amazing.
One more thing I wanted to say too is that sometimes we have to prioritize what we can do because there's something coming up that we need to do. Some days I can't do some things because there's something coming up with my child that I need to prioritize. Like, the spoon theory, you've only got so many spoons in a day sometimes. So there is that too. Sometimes I have to make a conscious decision. If I do this, I can't do that. So that has to be built into it too.
Absolutely. But that's great pacing. I've said to clients in the past too, I'm like, what's the point of being so good and so conscientious with your exercise program if you can't actually then do things that you enjoy? It doesn't make any sense. So at times, yes, you do need to make those trade-offs, or a very conscious decision to be like, I'm choosing not to exercise today because I'm going to save my energy to do whatever it is. But I think that's good decision making. It's informed decision making. And I think we're all in a journey to sort of understand our bodies and its capability, and that changes with different things that come in our path. So that sounds like you're really doing the best you can, which is great.
Thank you.
I agree. I think it sounds like you're really getting on with life, Simone, and I think that's fantastic. Sarah, I wanted to go back to perhaps for people who are listening and interested to get involved in exercise or movement. BJC runs some online classes, and that's another great option for people who perhaps are feeling a lot of pain, and getting to a gym or to a class or something is extra difficult. So there are lots of, chair-based things, and people can do stuff online to feel like they're involved in getting moving each day.
Yeah, I think there's never been more options on the table, with exercise, which I think it's a great thing. And I guess being an exercise physiologist, I guess my role in helping people has shifted a little. I think early on in my career, in terms of just the general level of awareness about exercise and its benefits, you spend a lot of time sort of educating people on that. Whereas now I find my role is about helping people choose the right option. I think a lot of people go, okay, I know exercise is going to help, or at some point they might feel that that's something that can assist them manage their health. But then it's but where do I start? What do I do? Do I do Pilates? Do I do reformer Pilates? Do I go to a gym? So it can be quite overwhelming. And I work in the space, and I still am I don't even know what that class means. So I definitely appreciate it can be a bit tricky, particularly at the start, or if you're wanting to restart after a diagnosis or a break or whatever it might be. But I just think now there's always options. And I think when I work with people, at least one-on-one initially, it's trying to get to know that person quite well to go, well, what option sounds like it's going to suit where you're at? Because I think it depends on so many factors: people's work life, their home life, their preferences. Some people straight out of the gate say, Sarah, I hate gyms. Hate. It's a strong word, right? So straight off, okay, that's not going to work. So then it's all about sort of crafting a place to start. I'd often say, and then it's being okay. And sometimes we can be our own harshest critic, that If that plan doesn't work, that's okay. We can try another one. We can pivot. We can try something online or get you going somewhere. So there's always options. And yeah, I think one of the blessings of COVID was kind of that boom of just needing to do things online and being able to support people moving from the comfort of their home. And I think that's been, very positive. And it has been a good place for people to start, especially if they're a bit intimidated or they're not sure. Initially with our classes, we encourage people just to watch at first, and can go incognito, camera off, no sound, just to see. Then they might participate a little bit. So it's just all about that journey and gradually finding something that works for you. But I think there's a lot of options. And if you're in that space of feeling overwhelmed with the options or you're not sure, that's where maybe reaching out and getting someone to help work you through what might be suitable for you can be very helpful. It saves you time.
Yeah. And when people have flares, like Simone was discussing, how do you get people through those times? Because that could be weeks or longer.
Yeah, understand. So I think a lot of my clients, like let's say it's someone that I'm managing in a self-directed way. Let's say they're either going to a gym or they've got a program that they're doing from home. Often clients that I've worked with for a while, they'll have different programs. And so it might mean that when things are good or they're feeling sort of, capable, they've got this series of things to sort of work through that we've sort of figured out over time. But then they go through a flare-up, then it's a whole different set of things, which typically the body needs things that are less taxing. And we can make changes to things like the position you're exercising in, the time that you're exercising for. There's so many variables that we can play with in terms of crafting a regime that's going to be enjoyable is probably a stretch, but at least doable. I sort of aim for doable first and always empowering my patients to say the numbers and the sets and reps potentially I give are just a guide. Ultimately, it's up to the person to, if you feel that you've done 5 reps and that's enough for you today, then that's enough. I'd always back my clients in making those decisions. So I think it's just having some options and trying to be kind to yourself. Because I think, as much as I'm an exercise physiologist, of course, I'm going on about exercise. It's equally important sometimes to go, today I feel that my body actually needs to lie down and take it easy. Like, that's okay. It's not about always trying to do more and push more. So I think, just to summarize, options are good. Different programs or just different styles of movement typically tend to be better during a flare, and it might need to be scaled right back, but also back yourself if you're like, I just don't feel like doing it today. That's okay as well. So need a mix of approaches, I think, when we're thinking about helping people over a longer term. Oh, just quickly, it's a terrible joke, but I remember early on at BJC, we had to try and help our rheumatologist go, what's the difference between an exercise physiologist and a physiotherapist? And one of the analogies we came up with was an exercise physiologist is marriage material. They're in it for the long haul. So we're sort of equipped, and I'm thinking long term. I'm not about just getting you to do something for 2 or 3 months. Like, anyone who's scary enough can manage that. But with these conditions and with people's lives in general, it's much more important that we help you with strategies that you see yourself doing in the long term. So marriage material, exercise physiologists. You've heard it here. And physios are like, what do we call them? Summertime flings. That sounds so bad, but hopefully you're only seeing them maybe, for shorter episodic type care, but obviously depends on the person. And of course, everyone's got the right to build their own team.
I love that joke. Great analogy. Simone, would you like to say anything about what Sarah just said?
I think that was so good. That was so important. Like, the long-term thing is so true. Like, I'm in my mid-50s now. Because of IVF, it took us a very long time to have our children. So I was going to be this fabulous and 50 mum, and then this came along when my daughter was about 4.5. So aging is something that can be challenging for anyone, but aging with a progressive degenerative disease is a whole nother ballgame. So that long haul, the big picture is definitely where I'm at. I think in the early days, I was definitely looking at what can I do now? What can we do to take the pain away in this moment? And now I look at the big picture completely. I'm marriage material too. I'm in this for the long haul.
Oh, you sound great, Simone.
I said the other day that I'm a lifer now. I had a mindset shift a little while ago, and it was, wow, you know what? I've just realized I'm a lifer with this. There's nothing that's going to make this go away. I have to learn how to live with it. And as you say, Sarah, that is looking at the long game. Like, looking at any little thing I do now could make a big difference to my life in 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the track, to not being in a wheelchair, to still being able to live in my house that has stairs, which I hate, to be able to play with my kids, or as they get older, to participate in their lives as fully as I can. Totally. So it's such a good big picture, and I think I should probably call you.
I'm available anytime.
It sounds like you are taking life, head on, Simone. And also, you said you recently started an Airbnb. I mean, that's not a small undertaking. So, how do you manage that? And I guess what are some of the positives and negatives of that? I'm sure that it's quite exciting to do that, but physically quite demanding.
Physically, it is very demanding, and definitely my own house has suffered from having to do that. But it's actually been really positive because it does keep me moving. As Sarah said about incidental exercise, there is a lot of incidental exercise doing it. So it's sort of been good working with the pain clinic to work out ways in which to do exercise, to do my cleaning tasks and changeover tasks safely so that I can manage it within, I've got 3 hours in which to do a guest turnaround. Mentally, like, it's been great for my mental health. It's something I really enjoy doing. It fits between the school hours. And in a sense, just because you have a disease that makes it very difficult to work, it doesn't stop the bills from coming in. So, for us, it's been a game changer to be able to run this little flat that's attached to our house, which is an old butcher shop. So the butcher shop part has now been turned into a little flat. So it keeps me moving, keeps me interested in life. It's something I really love doing. I've always loved hospitality. So to be able to have this little space that is really, truly special and get wonderful feedback from our guests has really helped me. Before I had this, I spent way too much time sitting around being sad for myself. This keeps me busy, keeps me moving. And so far I'm coping. I do go to bed really, really early, like 7 p.m. I'm done.
You touched on the mental health side of things, I guess the running an Airbnb and having a family, and you're doing so many positive things that keep that in check. Do you think the activity side of things helps with that as well? And I wanted to ask Sarah about that, having something to focus on and keeping active. Physiologically, it changes your mind sometimes, doesn't it, to keep going and to have a positive outlook?
Yes, I think exercise and mental health is huge. And I think more and more research is coming out now, and I think we're better at talking about it now. And it's a little bit more known, just the impact that movement and having a routine can make such big changes to your mental health. And I think, it's an understanding that going through a diagnosis that is ultimately going to impact the rest of your life is a huge thing. And Simone, you shared that was off the back of an incredibly stressful time, over those period of months leading up to that. So that's a lot. So I think, exercise, we can use it for so many different things. And it's not always about the physical benefits that we get out of it. Like, those are great and that can be very important to different people. But if someone's just looking to feel a little bit better mentally, then exercise, we know, is also a strategy that can be incorporated into someone's regime to help them with that. And again, if that's the main aim that the person has, and how I'd set up a program or how I'd sort of frame my approach would be quite different to someone who, say is very focused on, getting better in something physically. So routine can be very important. Movement, although especially if you're in pain, movement can be one of the last things you feel like doing. And I often say to patients, that's a very normal response. Pain is uncomfortable, and exercise in its very nature is uncomfortable. So don't be too hard on yourself. You're like, I just don't feel like it. That's okay. It's trying again to think of the bigger picture and have those sort of longer term aims, and trust in the process that some movement, you might get that little shift in mood straight away. And that can then lead to the next positive thing that you do that day. And that might make you feel that little bit better to talk to a friend, all those little things. It's just about finding that little thing to start with, and then you can sort of piggyback other positive things on top of that. And not to say that exercise has to be the starting point for a lot of people, it's not, but it can make changes to how you feel straight away. And I think that's pretty amazing, especially when we compare it to a lot of medications, and I think there's a great quote somewhere where it's like, if all of the benefits of exercise could be put into a particular pill, it would just be flying off the shelves. It's just so incredible. It's just amazing. It's partially why I'm still doing the clinical work that I do, because I'm like, it's just so amazing, but it's hard. So the benefits are there, but the doing of it can be very challenging. So that's where I think it can be great to have some support, get some people around you or some professionals around you that can help you keep at it and adjust it depending on what you're looking for. But the benefits are there.
Simone?
I think for me, I'm one of those people that I would exercise more for the mood than for the body. Like, the body would be a beautiful bonus, but definitely I think because you get used to pain in a sense and living with pain, I'm not saying you can push through it, because that's not really a healthy way to live with pain anyway, but overcoming the psychological effects of pain can be as big, if not bigger, than the pain itself. Because I think the psychological effects affect the people around you more too. They have a pushback, you get irritable, you're tired, you have low energy, or you don't want to do anything, you don't want to go anywhere. So yes, moving and getting that bit of extra exercise in via the B&B has been, a big mood shifter for me. Huge, actually, I'd say. And I think my family are happier for it.
That's wonderful. I think also it's keeping it interesting. I know I get a little bit bored just going for a walk. I mean, I live in an amazing place in Tasmania, but I still have to sort of fool myself, I guess, to do it. And the way I do things sometimes is to add a couple of components while I'm exercising. So I do like to take photos with my iPhone and, of nature and things. So I try and sort of go, okay, I really need to take some new photos, but actually I'll have to go for a walk to do that. So it's just like, that makes it interesting for me, and I guess I'm more inclined to go out and do that instead of just going for a walk. And so keeping that interest there.
And we're all different because it's just so fascinating what works for you. That would be just a nightmare for someone else that I've spoken to, where they're like, no, when I go for a walk, I don't want a reason, I don't want a location. It's just me and my walk. That's great. And then you've got other people that are just like, if I don't have an objective, I see no point, So again, I just find it fascinating, and there's no right or wrong, So again, I try and really make sure clients talk to themselves. It's like, no, this is just who you are. It's okay. We've just got to lean into it. Don't try and, I think, again, pretend that's not how you feel. It's good to be honest and open, because again, the people that you might be working with can then use that to help you lean into it more. But there's all sorts of different ways to get there. But I like taking photos of nature. I have so many flower pictures on my phone, Naomi. I am embarrassed when people are like, why have you got so many flower pictures? I'm like, I just love them.
I have lots of photos of that too, and animals, wallabies. So yeah, I wanted to ask about people joining these programs or seeing allied health, and perhaps the cost behind that, because that can be prohibitive. There are some things you can talk to your GP about, so that chronic disease management plans and things like that, where people can get free appointments for allied health. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think, there's lots of options out there. And I guess if you're, again, where I really see the value of maybe speaking to someone is where you want to get started, but you're either really worried and fearful. And I think that's very valid when you've, again, maybe got a new diagnosis, you've got some pain, you're not really sure what things are going to suit you. Or again, if maybe you've tried a few things, but you're just not feeling like you're on the right track. I think that's where, again, seeing someone and speaking to someone can be very helpful. And I often have an aim for myself, although I appreciate to see me one-on-one in one of our clinics costs money. I really make it a personal aim for myself that I should be saving time and money for all the clients that I see, in the ability that I hopefully can help coach them through, make good decisions, say no to things, say yes to things. I'm hopeful that in itself, obviously in the moderate to long term, saves a lot of time and money and stress. So that's, I guess, one of my personal aims. The chronic disease management plans are fantastic. So yes, you're right. The GP needs to be involved in setting that up for you. That allows you to access 5 visits with different allied health professionals, or it can be with the same allied health professional over the course of a 12-month period. So I think that can be very helpful to help people make a start. And it's in terms of how you use those appointments and how frequently you have your appointments, that's for you to discuss with your health professional. So we're very supportive of, seeing people with those programs. Again, I think that's a great place to start, but it's all about, what you're looking for. And I think it's good to ask questions. So if you're starting to see a new health professional, whether it's a physio or an EP or somebody else, you can always ask, how many sessions do you think I'll need? Obviously, once they get to know you a little bit, once you've got some goals, then hopefully they can give you a bit of guidance around what they think a good path forward is going to look like. And then it's ultimately up to you to decide if you're on board with that and what that might mean in terms of your time and obviously finances as well. But I find the chronic disease management plan is a good place to start. If people have private health insurance, that can sometimes help in the cost of then consults. But I think that's very much got to be part of building a good plan. There's no point looking around and going shopping for gyms if that's just not financially going to work for you. So I'm just always very keen for people to be honest We've talked a lot about preferences and what might work depend on logistics, but the financial element's huge as well. So again, just I encourage people to be upfront about what they may or may not be able to afford when they're starting to work with someone or when you're looking around at different exercise options. Again, because we're in it for the long term, I think got to think about it financially. If it was just something you had to do for 2 or 3 weeks, that would be different. But exercise, we're trying to help people set up for the long term. So it's good to have, again, some different options.
And I guess we've been talking about things we do in our personal time, but there's also for people who work. And Simone was talking about her experience with her OT at the pain clinic. And I know that people can get OT assessments for their workplace. And how important do you think that is for people to have a comfortable, ergonomic workspace where they are to help them with their pain levels?
Super, super, super duper important. Most of us still spend a significant time working. Again, it's great these days. Some people have a bit more flexibility. They might be able to do some stuff from home and they might still need to go into the office. Either way, though, it tends to be where we still spend a fair bit of time. And we know from research that the environment you're in makes a difference to your mood, your likelihood of exercising. So the environment is really important. And I think then when you sort of put the pain and maybe symptoms on top of that, we know good ergonomics, having some options, sit stand desks, having just the support around you to be as comfortable as possible can make a huge difference. So I encourage clients, like I'm happy to, I write letters or just ask for people to have an assessment. A lot of companies these days, they might have HR support where they can get someone to come in and assess. Very supportive of all that. And I think any way we can just optimize, again, even if there's just sometimes it's little changes, but if you're doing lots of little changes built up over time, that's a big impact. So very supportive of helping people however I can get that set up as best they possibly can.
And Simone, you've used the OT's tips in your businesses with the Airbnb. Do you want to share a bit about that?
We are just starting. I'm just starting out with the OT, so we haven't done a huge amount, but definitely worked on pacing, on looking at my plan for how I organize everything to try and make it a little bit more sense in an energy conservation way to stop me from maybe going back and forth to try and do things in advance. Basically, just planning my time and how to use it better, and also working rest periods into that, and still having the goal at the end of the day is to get everything done on time and to have the keys in the lockbox at 2 p.m. ready for the next one. So yes, time management, I guess. And I hadn't sort of thought about an OT from the point of view, but that's been really helpful. And it was just interesting with Sarah just commenting then on the financial cost, reminded me to go back to my GP and get another with a chronic illness plan. And I do believe they can extend a couple of sessions sometimes too, because I know that they do on a mental health care plan. You get the 5 and then sometimes they can add a couple of extra ones on, because the financial cost of being sick is ridiculous. And I think you touched also too on being able to do online exercise, because the physical cost of going somewhere can sometimes just derail you. And that was one of the best things that came out of COVID was, telehealth and being able to do online exercise classes and see, health professionals such as yourself in a Zoom call. It's just been an absolute game changer for people with chronic pain, and saves money as well, because you're not having to pay for parking and transport costs, which on top of medication and care can be really prohibitive.
It can definitely add up. And even if you're doing it to help you manage things as best you can, it still can be very expensive. I just have one other tip when you're thinking of spending money on any type of exercise. It's worth doing a bit of reflecting to go, what do you personally need to actually pay for? Like, what are you paying for? Because sometimes people ask me, do I need a personal trainer? Should I get a personal trainer? Should I do this? So some of us at different times, because I think, again, it changes at different times in our life, it is worth paying for having someone stand over you and tell you what to do. Right? There's some clients that are like, I need to pay for that because that's the only way I'm going to do some exercise. So I'm like, okay. Now that hopefully isn't most of us, right? At other stage, maybe joining a gym or joining a center, what you're paying for is access to all the equipment. Okay. So sometimes people are like, well, I want to do this and I want to do a bit of that and I need some weights, but I don't have them at home. I don't have space for them at home. So again, then it's worthwhile potentially to then go, well, I need to find somewhere where the equipment is what I'm paying for. Then it doesn't matter if you get a white fluffy towel. It doesn't matter if the receptionists are friendly or not. So I really get people to think, what is it that you want to actually pay for? Is it the supervision? Is it the stick? Is it the environment? And that sometimes can help narrow down the options, because I think these days it can be tempting to go, oh, if you just pay $2 extra, you get access to this, you get access to that. But that might not be of any interest to you. And I think sometimes people get caught, paying for things they don't need or they don't want. So, and if you're not sure, it's just, a good question to go, what am I most going to benefit from at the moment? And then that's where you still might need to spend, but be prepared to, then you can sort of stinge out in other areas. So that's even how I make my own decisions around what gyms I go to and things. I know what I want, and then I'm happy to not pay for lots of other things so that I can still make it work.
Fantastic advice. I like that a lot. I think we're getting close to the end of our episode. I wanted to ask you both, what is your best advice for someone who's just starting out with psoriatic arthritis? Simone.
I would honestly say my best advice would be to join something like a Facebook group. I joined a psoriatic arthritis Facebook group and found more information on there in a short period of time for people who are actually living with the disease and have been living with it for a long time. I found that incredibly helpful. It helped me know what to ask my rheumatologist when I went back again. It gave me some insight into possible medications. It cut through a lot of the medical jargon that you often get with a learned professional who they know everything about this disease, and I think there's a level of assumption that they have about their clients. So I would say, join something like a Facebook group and ask lots of questions and just be really informed and be your own advocate. I had experience with that because we've done IVF. You have to be your own advocate a lot there. And I'd say too, learn as much as you can about your disease, join some groups, get some support, and be your own advocate.
Wonderful. Sarah?
Oh, I can't top that. That's really good advice. I think maybe I'll just go in addition to that. I agree with everything Simone said, because then it's about, once you're informed, then it's just finding your crew. Then it's just about whether it's your rheumatologist, just bit by bit based on the things you might want to work on, just finding the people that you can build some trust with who can support you. Because I think at different times, having that support around you can be very helpful. And just be kind to yourself, one thing at a time. It's a life-changing thing. So be kind to yourself, get the information, and then you can choose which sort of path and which things you might be open to, learning a bit more about and then taking some action.
Wonderful advice. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. I want to thank you so much for the great conversation and amazing insights into psoriatic arthritis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Patient Prep Room. Creaky Joints Australia recommends that you always consult with your medical provider to ensure you remain at the centre of your healthcare. This podcast was made possible with support from UCB Australia. If you've liked what you've heard, be sure to rate our podcasts, write a positive review, and spread the word by sharing with your friends and family. It'll help more people like you find us.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.